However, it is time to switch gears. Halo 3 just launched at the beginning of the week.
Woo.
People are talking about it, so we figured, we might as well get a little review in from our guys over at 1UP, and we actually had Dan Hsu come down to talk about it, and this is what he had to say.
Halo Combat Evolved took the gaming world by storm as being one of the launch titles for the original Xbox in November 2001. Now, in 2007, Halo 3 is poised to be one of the hottest gaming titles, if not the hottest gaming titles of the year. And here to talk about it, joining me is Dan Hsu, Editor-in-Chief and Editorial Director of 1UP Network.
Hey, how's it going, Scott?
Man, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, right now, 2 titles.
Wow. Anyway, so let's just jump into it. For those who aren't familiar with the series, let's give a brief overview of what is Halo.
It's an epic sci-fi first-person shooter. That's the easiest way to put it. But it's more in-depth. You know, why it's so popular, it's more involved than just shooting aliens or shooting bad guys, you know. It's a story about the humanity trying to survive against this Covenant race, which is an alliance of all these other aliens trying to light up these things called the Halos, which are meant to destroy another race called the Flood, this parasitic race, but actually people find out this is going to wipe out all life in the universe. So the humans are trying to stop that big mess.
And then who's Master Chief?
Master Chief is probably the guy you see everywhere, you know, in your 7-Elevens, Mountain Dew cans, everywhere. He's the armored guy, the 7-foot-tall metal marine, and he's one of the Spartans, which are these elite group of super soldiers in the Marines program. And these guys are, they're strong. They're able to survive in much harsher conditions than the other soldiers. So he's the tough guy. He's the big badass in the group.
Now, how is the third installment a departure from the original and episode 2?
I don't know if I would call it a departure. I'd say it's more just an improvement and refinement on all levels. You know, graphically, it's superior, obviously, because this is the first game on the Xbox 360. It sounds great. A lot more features, gameplay, they did a lot of things to it. So it's really, I don't think it's going to hold a lot of big surprises for fans of the first 2 games, and that might be one of the complaints. It's like, it's the third game in a trilogy. It's a bit of a known quantity by this point. It's not a big surprise like the first Halo was, or BioShock was, or something like that. But, it's still a very well-polished product. It looks good, sounds good, and there's just so much to play. It's like, it's easily a game I could recommend to any gaming guy, any guy who's into games, because if you don't like single player, there's multiplayer. If you don't like multiplayer, you can get into the Forge map editor. You could play co-op, and there's just a ton of content on one game.
Can you go over the single player and multiplayer modes a little bit? Just how, are they improved from the earlier games, how they've changed?
Well, let's say if you take a look at the main campaign, you could say the improvements are the storytelling is a little bit more straightforward, because if you remember back to Halo 2, they actually had 2 characters and 2 intertwining storylines, and I think that kind of confused people a little bit. So they decided to scrap that idea and go a little bit more straightforward this time. But I will say, if you're new to the series or you haven't played Halo 2 in a long time, you'll probably still be a little confused about what's going on exactly, because they don't do a good job of recapping the events from the past games. But there's also, the stuff you would expect, like new vehicles. There's a new Hornet kind of hovercraft that's really fun to fly. There's new weapons like flamethrowers and flame grenades, and a Spartan laser, which I think is everyone's favorite new weapon. There's a lot of little tweaks like that. And really, I think probably my favorite gameplay improvement are the controls. Like, now it makes a lot more sense where everything's mapped to your shoulder buttons and bumper buttons, to where whether you're using 2 weapons or 1 weapon, it makes a lot of sense. It's very intuitive, and it makes it hard to go back to Halo 2.
Now, without giving away too much, is the door open for more Halo mayhem?
It's I got to find a way to do this without spoiling anything. So Bungie has always said, the developer, they've always said that this is going to be our conclusion. This is the last game in a trilogy, and that's it. We're done with the main Halo series. Of course, there's going to be spin-offs, they want to wrap it up. And at the end, they do wrap it up nicely. And I always tell people, make sure you to watch through the credits all the way to the end, because some more stuff happens after the credits roll. Is it possible for there to be a Halo 4 story-wise? Yeah, but they don't do it in a kind of cliched, predictable sense. Like the example I use, I don't know why, but like Godzilla, the movie from I think about a decade ago, the modern remake, where at the end, like, oh no, there's an egg left, so it implies, right. It's not over yet, Or at the end of Gears of War, they left that really open for a sequel. They're like, oh, there's still another bad guy floating around in the background, and he's going to start this whole thing up again. So they don't quite do it like that, which was nice. They didn't like leave us with a predictable, cliched Hollywood ending. So, but they do wrap it up nicely. But I can see there being more stories being told in a Halo universe.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it very much. Halo 3 is for the Xbox 360. It's by Bungie Studios. It's out now. It's going to cost you $60. Back to you guys.
Master Chief says bye, or at least play the game. You know what? I'm not a big Halo fan, but that game looks pretty nifty.
Yeah, and I hear that the plot is not quite as tangled as it was in Halo 2, where things became a little confusing. It sort of started to turn into the show Lost. That helmet is pretty cool, too.
It is. It's part of the limited edition set. I think it's called the Legendary.
Where did you get that? Did you get that at Comic-Con?
No, actually, I snagged this from Hsu. I asked him for something, and when his back was turned, I said, hey, that looks like a cool helmet. And I kind of walked off with it.
Oh, nice. The other thing I hear about Halo 3 is that it actually has kind of a sad ending.
Nope, no spoilers.
A tearjerker. That's not a spoiler. I'm just telling you, be prepared with the hanky at the end. That's all I'm saying.
How can you get a hanky to your helmeted face?
I know, it's true. Just shove it right up inside there.